Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Thank you so much for being here. Today I will do another monthly reading wrap up, and this one is for the month of February. Also, I don't have any sort of notes for this video, so today you're gonna get what you're gonna get basically. Let me quickly brew another cup of coffee because I feel like I need it, and then I'm gonna come back and talk about all of the books that I read in February. Mission accomplished. Cheers. Hopefully I didn't spill on myself. Oh well. Anyway. Very good. Very good. I just brewed the last like 15 grams of beans that I had from The Alchemist from Drak Coffee Roasters. This is one of my favorites from them. I'm kind of sad that I ran out of it, but I'm sure I will repurchase it eventually. Okay, let's talk about the books that I read in February. As you can see here, it's a lot. I read some really cool books, but I also read books that were, well, not really for me and a bit questionable, but we're gonna discuss about everything eventually. Also, this is going to be like from worst to best, with a mention that when I say worst, it doesn't mean that it's like a bad book necessarily. It just means that I didn't personally enjoy it or like it. So with that in mind, let's start with the worst book that I read in February, and that is unfortunately The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers. I was very excited when I saw that Penguin came out with this like weird fiction collection. They have like the spines. I'm not sure if it's gonna focus. There we go. They have these like ombre spines, and they also have like another anthology of like weird fiction that I also have and I have to read. But I was very excited for this because on the back of it says, combining expectation-defying horror with decadent description, The King in Yellow has proven to be one of the most durable and brilliant collections of weird fiction ever written, inspiring countless authors from the mythos of H.P. Lovecraft to the fantasy worlds of George R.R. Martin. So I was very excited about the blurb on the back, but I was also excited about the premise of this book. And I feel like actually the cover of this one is very evocative of what the book is about. So in the world of this book, we have a world that is very similar to our own, with the difference that it's like a dystopian kind of world. And in this world, there is a book called The King in Yellow that is illustrated here on the cover. And allegedly, supposedly, everyone that reads this book is a drama. Everyone that reads this book will eventually turn insane, or they're driven insane. So this is like a very short collection of stories that are following characters that have read The King in Yellow, which is the book from the world of this book. We are following them as they are eventually doing some weird things. It's definitely fitting for the weird fiction category. My main issue with this book, though, is that these characters are so boring. I'm sorry, but it's just like nothing is really happening. And I get that we can have like meaningful stories without plot, like we are just exploring the thoughts and lives of the main characters. That is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But it just felt like nothing was really happening to these characters, to the point where I wasn't really sure why I was reading this, because I was not enjoying my time, but I was already like 60 or 70 pages through it, and this one has only 100 pages. So I was like, okay, I might as well finish it if I started reading it, and I read like a good chunk of it. Not really the type of horror that I am looking for, and I'm happy that this inspired like so many people, and there are a lot of people that are fans of this book. It was just not for me. It was just not for me. I will say though, the short story that I have disliked the least, which doesn't say much, but the one that I disliked the least is the first one, The Repairer of Reputations. I feel like if that story would have been longer and with a bit more depth to it, that could have been really cool. But I'm just like judging, quote unquote, this book at its value, like what I was reading, and not for its potential. And unfortunately, I didn't really enjoy this one. The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers. Okay, moving along to another book that wasn't necessarily my thing that I read in February. This is All the Lovers in the Night by Mieko Kawakami. These kind of books tend to be very hit or miss for me. Like I either relate so much to the character that I feel every sentence, or I don't really care for them and their struggles. And I know that sounds horrible, but that was kind of what was happening with me in this book. I also was not feeling great when I read it, so that probably also contributed to my dislike is like a strong word, but with me not actually enjoying this one. So in this book, we are following our main character, Fuyuko, I think it's her name. Yeah, Fuyuko, who is a freelancer, and she is basically proofreading books in her day-to-day job, and she has struggles with connecting with people. She's very lonely, very alone, and she just comes to the realization that her life is just like the same thing, like over and over again. She's very stuck in her daily routine until obviously she meets a guy who she grows more and more infatuated with. And through this guy and through their connection, she's able to loosen up a bit and do things out of her comfort zone, and eventually realize that her life doesn't need to be that boring or that like stuck in the same confines as previously. The tone of this book is very, I don't even know what the correct word would be, maybe clinical. And now that I'm thinking about it, maybe this is the point of the book, because the main character is like so, set on doing the things that she's doing every day and not do anything else. So maybe that's also why this feels like that, but I just wished for a bit more from the main character. Like I feel like I read this exact same story in other books and done in like a better way. All the Lovers in the Night was okay-ish. I wouldn't say I disliked it, but it was also not my favorite, and I just feel like other books did it in a better way. So this is All the Lovers in the Night by Mieko Kawakami. Moving along to like a completely different genre, I read The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. This was on my physical TBR for quite a while now, and I'm happy that I finally got to read it. Was it my favorite? Not really. In this book, we are following our main character. I think her name is Jess or something. Wait, I keep forgetting. No, this is Mimi, but I'm pretty sure Jess is the main character, right? Yeah, okay, so Jess is our main character. So Jess goes from the UK. She left everything there all her life. She left it in the UK, and she wants to move to Paris with her brother Ben, or half brother, let's say. And as she is going to Ben's apartment, she discovers that he's not there. She cannot contact him. He's not responding to her messages and stuff like that. And she starts thinking that something happened to Ben. We also get like a lot of these like secondary characters that are just like shitty Parisian people, basically, which I liked. I think that was well done. It's almost like a satire on like French people. I wanted more from this book because the mystery thriller element of it felt like a bit predictable. And when I say a bit predictable, I kind of figured out what was happening at like roughly 40-45%. And I kept reading because I wanted to see if I was correct, and I was correct. So, but yeah, as she is trying to investigate what happened to her brother Ben, she discovers this like massive thing with all of the people that live in this apartment building. For some reason, I kept picturing this book as a movie in my head. Like I think it can work really, really well as a movie. And also, speaking of this, there's another character in this book, Sophie. She's like one of the neighbors from the apartment complex. Every single time I was reading her chapters, like her POV, I kept picturing her as Philippine Leroy Beaulieu. So if someone would make a movie with Philippine Leroy Beaulieu as Sophie, I would be excited about that. The structure of this book is also something that I enjoyed. We have very short chapters, and each chapter is like a point of view of one of the characters that are living in this apartment building. And Another thing that I liked, like specifically about the structure and how the chapters are organized. So typically when we have multiple POVs, you have the chapter, which is like a POV of one of the characters. They stop the action from their point of view at the end of the chapter, and then when the next chapter starts, we get the point of view of another character, but they would start the action right from where the other character left off. Hopefully that makes sense, because I don't know how else to describe it. But basically in this book, we don't start the action of the next chapter where we stopped with the other one. There's a bit of like overlaying in between chapters. Like we get to see what happened in the previous chapter, also through the lens of the next character, which I think worked really well. Overall, again, not my favorite, but I I liked reading it. As I said, my main issue was with the mystery thriller element of it that I didn't really buy. But I think the character work was well done, and also the structure of the book was well done. The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. And now I don't know what to do with my hands because I don't have the physical copy of the book, so I will just hold my cup of coffee, okay? Next up for February, we have, I will figure out where to put this book, but we have Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. So I didn't know necessarily if I wanted to read this book, and then I was able to listen to the audiobook of it. So I was like, you know what? Why not? Yeah, sure. I'm paying for the subscription anyway. I didn't know what I wanted to listen to, so I decided to listen to this one, which is Ellie Hazelwood's new romance book. Now, when it comes to my experience with this author, I have only read another book from Ali Hazelwood, which was Bride. I read it last year. I kind of knew what I was expecting from this book, like the writing style and, her quirks and stuff like that as an author. And I will say, like, if you like generally Ali Hazelwood, I feel like this book is also very Ali Hazelwood, like in her style of writing. This book was kind of strange to me. Like I wanted more from it, but in the same time I was like, you know what, it's kind of okay. It's kind of okay. So very mixed feelings from me personally with this one. I will say that my favorite character is definitely Pen from this book. She is our main character's best friend, kind of. I kept thinking how I can like explain a bit what's the plot of this book, because with a romance book, that's generally the plot. Like you have two people that fall in love and that's kind of it. So I'm gonna read the blurb from Goodreads. It says, Scarlett Vandermeer is swimming upstream. A junior at Stanford and a student athlete who specializes in platform diving, Scarlett prefers to keep her head down, concentrating on getting into med school and on recovering from the injury that almost ended her career. She has no time for relationships, at least that's what she tells herself. Swim captain, world champion, all-around aquatics golden boy Lucas Blomqvist thrives on discipline. It's how he wins gold medals and breaks records, complete focus with every stroke. This writing is just like is something else. Okay. On the surface, Lucas and Scarlett have nothing in common until a well-guarded secret slips out and everything changes. And as the pressure leading to the Olympics heats up, so does their relationship. It is supposed to be just a temporary, mutually satisfying fling, but when staying away from Lucas becomes impossible, Scarlett realizes that her heart might be treading into dangerous water. Um, Okay, so this book is supposedly like the kink-oriented, like BDSM kind of book from Ali Hazelwood. If you're looking for that, I don't know if you will be satisfied with this book, because I don't think it's that kinky, to be honest, like in what they actually do. Kinks are talked about and like acknowledged, and like they have the whole like contract and list and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, we're gonna get into some really freaky shit if they have a contract, right? No, no, no. Turns out it was pretty vanilla, I would say, for a book, again, like marketed as the kinky BDSM one. So that was kind of like my main issue with this one, is that I didn't really bought their whole like kinky relationship. I guess it makes sense because they're in college, like they're just discovering their, sexuality and stuff like that. It is normal to want to explore. But in the same time, I also wouldn't market this as being, centered around kinks. There are also like very weird jokes. One that really stuck with me, pretty much in all of their interactions, Scarlett will tell Lucas something about the King of Sweden, or she would like make a joke about the King of Sweden. And I was like, the first time I was like, okay, yeah, fine, sure. Let's assume that Sweden is a monarchy. But then when she did it the second time and the third time and the fourth time, it was like a lot. It was like a lot that I didn't like that. I don't know. Bride was better in my opinion. I had like a moderately okay time with the book. It was just not really for me. Deep End or Wet by Ali Hazelwood. Let's get back into fantasy, but this is like a very soft, like cozy fantasy. I have here The Teller of Small Fortunes. I feel like I needed this type of a book in February. It was cute. It was fun. I had a great time. I read this one on like a gloomy day, and it was everything that I needed, honestly. Also, the cover, like the actual hardcover of this book is just like so cute with this cat, and also the spine with the blue foiling. So yeah, we are dealing with our main character Tao, who is an immigrant, and she basically tells small fortunes. She can't tell you like big things from your future, but she can tell like small things that could happen in the future, like you will leave your stove open when you leave the house tomorrow and you have to be careful, like something along those lines, right? And as we are following Tao as she's like moving from one town to the other, she encounters two other characters. Obviously, I can't remember their names. This is what happens when I'm too lazy to take notes when I read. So anyway, she encounters these two other characters as she's going from one town to the other, and she discovers that one of them is actually in the search of his daughter. She was kidnapped by someone and they went to rescue her, or like they're trying to rescue her. And they sort of team up to help this other character find his daughter. Very strong found family vibes. I liked the fantasy element of it. Typically with like soft fantasies or like cozy fantasies, the fantasy element is not as well defined or well developed, but I quite enjoyed the magic system in this one. I enjoyed the fact that our main character is like an immigrant in this land, and we have focused quite a bit on her struggles with that and how the other people are treating her. I think it was very well done, and if you're looking for something, a bit of a palate cleanser, let's say, I would highly recommend The Teller of Small Fortunes. It is now time to talk about the Shadowhunters books that I read this month, because I read five of them, and I had a great time. I had a great time. Don't think I can show them all to you. Oh my god. These are the Dark Artifices books by Cassandra Clare, obviously. So this series is composed of Lady Midnight, Lord of Shadows, and Queen of Air and Darkness. And yes, this book is bigger than my head. I'm gonna keep only this book in frame so that you know what I'm talking about, but I can't hold all of them in the same time because they're massive. So this series is set in the LA Institute. I feel like all of Cassandra Clare's series so far, the ones that are set in the Shadowhunters universe, are very like representative of like a specific season. I definitely think that these ones are very summer, so not the best time for me to read this in like the dead of winter. But I had a really, really good time reading these books. I didn't really like Julian that much, and I didn't really get their relationship. Also, didn't really like what happened like in the end and how their issue as Parvati was resolved. Not my favorite plot point from this series, but The other characters, oh my god, Christina and Mark and the slutty fairy boy, loved. I loved the whole like polyamory trouble situation and how it was handled. I loved that we got to see more of the Fae world and more of the like silly and unsilly quirks and what it's like in their realm and stuff like that. I love the Fae that Cassandra Clare writes. But yeah, these books are following the Blackthorn family, and more specifically Emma Carstairs and Julian Blackthorn, because they are parabatai, but they also fell in love. And if you read the Moral Instruments or like any other Shadowhunters series, I think it's mentioned in all of them that the Shadowhunters have like this very strict rule that you're not supposed to fall in love with your parabatai, because parabatai is supposed to be like friendly love or familial love, but not like romantic love. And these books, this series is exploring what happens if you fall in love with your parabatai and why this whole rule exists. But this series is so much more than that. Like, we get to see so many things happening, specifically with the Fae. I just feel like this series sets up perfectly Cassandra Clare's upcoming series that's going to be the last one in the Shadowhunters universe. I think it's called The Wicked Powers or something like that. Yeah, very excited for those books to come out. I think the first one is going to come out sometime in 2026. Also, another thing that happened in the last book, which is Queen of Air and Darkness. Obviously, without going into any spoilers, the thing that happened in Idris at the end of this book, if you know, you know, I just couldn't believe that they like went there with Idris. I was shook to my core, and I'm very excited to see or like to have news from Idris or like what happened with Idris in the new series, because I'm sure that's gonna get like touched on in the new one. This series was really cool. It was really cool. I liked it a lot. I liked the characters. I liked the world building. I like the specific things that happen with Malik in this book. If you know, you know. Really, really cool. Really, really, really cool. The whole like story with Emma and Julian was a bit like, okay. But anything else, super well done. The Dark Artifices series by Cassandra Clare. Okay, moving along to another fantasy series that I have continued reading in the month of February, and that is the Atlas Paradox. This is the continuation to the Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. I have like a full-on reading blog here on the channel. I will link it down below if you want to watch that and get like a bit more of my thoughts on this series and specifically on this book, spoiler free. This was really good. This was really, really good. This is like the dark academia that pretty much takes into account the critique of our society that I just love in dark academia. So I really, really liked this one. Being the continuation of a series, I can't really say that much without getting into spoiler territory, but in the Atlas 6 we are following these 6 characters who all get recruited to be part of the Alexandrian Society. And the Alexandrian Society is basically keeping all the knowledge from the world, because in this world of this series, the Library of Alexandria didn't burn. All of these people get recruited to be part of the Alexandrian Society, but what they don't know is that only 5 will survive, because they have to sacrifice someone in order for the library to maintain its powers, potentially. And something really weird and like strange happens that I loved at the end of the Atlas 6. And now this book is sort of navigating that whole like situation with that specific character and how they can get past that so that we continue our main plot, because we got a bit derailed. And yeah, I had a great time reading this. I read it in like 24 hours, I think. Like I read this super fast because I was like on the edge of my seat to find out what's happening with these characters. And I'm very excited for the last one in this series, the Atlas Complex. I hope I'm gonna be able to read it soon. So this is the Atlas Paradox by Olivia Blake. Okay, we're almost done, but going back into the Shadowhunters universe, I also read the continuation to Clockwork Angel, which is Clockwork Prince and then Clockwork Princess. So I have finished the Infernal Devices trilogy in February as well. And my god, these books destroyed me. So the epilogue of Clockwork Princess is, I think, my favorite ending of like any book. I wouldn't say ever, but like probably this year, it's definitely in like the top. I loved the conclusion to this specific arc in the Shadowhunters universe, but also I love the fact that these characters are making cameos in the other series. And I just think it's so cool to see their life and their relationships go past what we knew in these books and see them like living their life basically in the future as well. These books were definitely like YA, like it's very simplistic in its approach to fantasy. I definitely think that the main like fantasy elements were simplified, but the character work is just insane. And I honestly didn't really care for like the villain of the story or anything. I just wanted to see these characters like interact with each other. The Infernal Devices books are definitely going to be in my top for 2025. I can't wait to go back into the Shadowhunters universe when I will be reading the Last Hours trilogy and also all of the like spin-off books, short stories, whatever from the Shadowhunters universe. So very excited for that, and these books would highly recommend if you like YA fantasy, very important. If you like epic fantasy, there might be a chance to like this because again the character work is very well done, but for like the fantasy elements of it, I don't know if you would enjoy them as much if you don't typically like YA. Oh my god, I've been recording for 56 minutes. That's a lot, but we're almost done. We are on to the last book, which I definitely think was the best one that I've read in February, and that is Blood Over Brighthaven by L.L. Wang. So this book is fantasy. It's sort of in this dark academia subgenre of fantasy, I would say, but this was very well done. This book is very in your face when it comes to the political commentary, but that is kind of the point of it. I love when like a fantasy book has like a really strong message and you could tell what was the inspiration for it and you could tell what's the message that it tries to communicate and convey. And with this book, you have no doubts. Like this is not a subtle book. A lot of things that are very relevant, specifically now in today's like political context. This is my first book from this author. I know they also have like another very popular fantasy book, The Sword of Kaigan, I think it's called. Yeah, The Sword of Kaigan. It also says on the cover of this one, and I'm very excited to read that one as well eventually. But basically what happens in this book, so we are following our main character Sayona, who is training to become the first high mage from the world of this book. I think it's called Tyrann or something, Tyrann, the city. See, this is my problem. Like, I forget the names of the cities and of the characters so much. But yeah, basically, she's training to become the first high mage from this city. The problem is that there was never another woman high mage. So she has a really tough time. So we are following her as she's trying to become high mage. Very early on in the book, she passes the exam. She becomes the first woman high mage. But as she is getting more and more into her research as a high mage, and as she's working on her spells to like extend the barrier of their town, of their city, she starts to uncover pretty horrendous things that happened in the past and they are still happening right now in this city. And she's also like contributing to those things without her knowledge. But as she's discovering this like massive plan of like the government basically from the city, she has like a tough time with like accepting what she did and what all of her colleagues are currently doing. It is also a commentary on religion or like different cultures and how we tend to dismiss and think poorly of the people that we don't understand or that have different opinions or beliefs than we have. The fantasy elements in this book are very well defined. We have very clear rules as to how the magic system is working and what we can achieve with this magic system. And I love how the main character is applying all of these rules that we have in the magic system to basically work against it, if that makes sense. The way that they're doing magic is that they have this almost like typewriter with runes, and they would write basically what I imagine to be lines of code like Java or C++ or HTML or something. I think there's also like a technical paper for this thing that they use. Yeah, it's called a spellgraph. So this is how they are writing their spells. Definitely the best book that I have read in February. Love the magic system, love the commentary, loved how the author was able to portray these characters. I also liked how from time to time we also get this different point of view from the janitor from the High Magistry. His name is Tamil. And it contrasted so well the voice of our main character. So yeah, this is Blood Over Brighthaven by Emma Wang. I would highly recommend you read this book. This is pretty much the end of the video. These are all of the books that I read in February. Also, my camera is dying, so very quickly, please let me know in the comments down below what was your favorite book that you have read in February. Or what is a book that you're excited to read in March? And that being said, I guess I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, do all of the things if you want to. If not, then that's totally fine. And yeah, I will see you hopefully in a new video soon. Bye everyone.